Hi everyone. Thanks for coming along. We'll just spend a few minutes waiting for everyone to join, and then we'll do our introductions and get stuck into it. But really excited to take you through the BBP program, um, with and assist Amanda in running everyone through it all. At any time, if you have any, we're gonna have time for questions at the end. But if you do have questions, just chuck them um, in the chat, and we have a team member who will kind of look at those and make sure we don't miss any. But yeah, this isn't going to be a long, heavy session by any means, and we'll certainly have time at the end to go over any questions you may have. And there's no silly questions today. So
Okay, I can see we've got 16 people online already, so
yeah,
we'll just wait for a couple of minutes.
yeah. Also, this webinar has been recorded. We'll send it out to you afterwards with a few other little things as well. So don't worry too much about taking notes. It'll be all sent to you later today or tomorrow. Okay, we'll kick off around 12:35. Let's wait for everyone to come in and then we'll cover off a few things. Great. See everyone kind of trickling in at the moment.
You just let me know when you want me to kick off, Alex.
Yeah, I think we're good to kick off. Like
Okay.
everyone we'll just do the introductions and get started
Okay.
and trickle in.
Okay, fantastic. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. We are co-hosting between Better Business Partnership and our new strategic partner, NetNada. My name is Amanda Choi. I'm the program coordinator of the Better Business Partnership program. And I'd first like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from where I'm coming from, Camaragal in Sydney. Pay respects to all the elders, past, present, and emerging, and pay my respects to any First Nations people online today, and welcome you all. So what are we going to talk today about? Well, it's really exciting. BBP, let me just, I don't have the slides. So Alex, if we can jump into the next thing. Okay, so what are we going to be talking today about? Well, a little bit about what sustainability means for the business community, and how the legislative environment is changing very, very fast. What is carbon accounting? So Alex is going to explain that in as simple terms as possible. I don't really understand it myself. That's why we have partnered with this amazing company. And then talk about this amazing opportunity that that BBP and NetNada are offering to our accredited members. So without further ado, I'll just get into the next slide, which is a little bit of an introduction. And I haven't really introduced Alex, but I'm going to let him do that in a second. So, Better Business Partnership, for those of you who may not be aware of our program, we are a council-funded small business program. We're based in the northern suburbs of Sydney, and our partner councils are Ku-ring-gai, Willoughby, and North Sydney. We've been around for about 15 years, supporting thousands of small and medium-sized businesses in our local community, and we're reaching out now through these channels to reach a lot more businesses. So our vision is really to help the small and medium business community to create better environmental and social outcomes through operating sustainably and responsibly. And our mission is to provide support and empowerment through education, through providing consultancy services for businesses within our partner council areas, and really helping them to towards a net zero future. What does net zero mean? So all of our councils and pretty much every council in Australia are adopting or have adopted targets to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Our partner councils, Willoughby, Ku-ring-gai and North Sydney, they've all targeted 2 key dates. So for their internal council operations, 2030 is a key date to achieve net zero, which means reducing the greenhouse gas emissions as far as possible towards zero. There's always going to be a remainder, and so carbon offsetting is part of that. But 2040 is a key date where our councils are working in conjunction with the businesses, with the residents, to achieve a net zero community. And that means changing to renewable energy where possible, uptaking solar and batteries where possible, moving towards electric vehicles, reducing waste streams. We in BBP are working with hundreds of businesses right now to reduce food waste that goes to landfill. So that has been kicked off in a partnership with the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority. And today we're really excited to be announcing this strategic partnership that BBP has started with NetNada, which is a climate tech company at the cutting edge of sustainability. And the service they offer is to measure and report on carbon data, helping businesses to reduce their carbon footprint and to offset the remainder. So BBP being a service provided by councils, has done a lot of due diligence to make sure that we are partnering with a really legitimate company that has the appropriate background and capability. So the NetNada service is really complementary to what BBP does. And I refer to a very famous Peter Drucker saying, which any of you who've done any management studies knows, that you can't manage what you can't measure. And measuring a carbon footprint is not easy. There's been a lot of work done on carbon accounting. It's not just like ordinary accounting, very, very complex. So we have partnered with NetNada, who will make it very simple for you. So I'll go into the into our opportunity for partnership and the pilot program afterwards, but I want to hand over to Alex to take you through why this is important and give you a bit of background on this whole huge issue.
Great. Thanks for that introduction, Amanda. It's such a great program. So inspiring in a way to see what BBP is doing to really kind of provide support across all the businesses participating. So, what we're going to touch on in a second is really how sustainability and the data point or the central goal of, this overarching term of sustainability has really changed in recent years to be focused around carbon emissions. And all of these different initiatives, from our waste to our energy to everything, are really tied towards that measurable unit of our carbon emissions. If we can use that and guide that and reduce using that and tie that into, our discussions of sustainability and how we view and perceive sustainability, it opens up so many doors. And as Amanda mentioned, yes, it is very complicated and very complex, but that's why we exist. We exist, NetNada, and I'll go into a second, to make it so accessible, to make it really easy for you, and to make sure that these outcomes are ones that are done to the top professional, internationally accredited, externally auditable standard. But I thought, before going straight into a bit about NetNada, it'd be good to start off with a bit of the bigger picture. Why are we all here at 12:30 on a Wednesday, learning and talking about and giving up our precious time to discuss carbon emissions and how we're calculating them within the realm of your business? To take it way, zoom right out. Obviously, climate change is now one of the biggest risks to businesses from a political and regulatory compliance perspective. It's no longer just businesses that are entrenched within potentially like agriculture, where there is a climate change risk to how their product is grown or sold, or the yield to it all. Mandatory reporting requirements, legislation, political decisions are all trickling right down to the smallest of companies within Australia and overseas. So there's a lot more stakeholder expectations, a lot more costs, there's a lot more opportunity. And right now there is a lot more competitive advantage to those who take a hold of it. And, very luckily for you, this competitive advantage through BBP is potentially something very, very accessible. 3 big moments. I feel like it's always good to kind of orientate us around carbon emissions, how they calculated the impact of them all. Kyoto Protocol, many of you may have heard of, back in 1997. The United Nations essentially got together and said, we know carbon emissions are bad, we need to figure out how to calculate them. And from there, the GHG protocols, greenhouse gas emissions, were born. Okay, how do we calculate that? We know there's a standard, a certain, methodology that NetNada follows, that we all follow, that anyone who's, worth their salt in the space follows. For a long time, we knew they were bad. We knew they were calculating. There wasn't much drive or legislation or even push to calculate them, or let alone reduce them. In 2015, again, the UN get together and they say, all right, we know that we now, based on all this science, we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions so that the world doesn't heat to a level of over 1.5 degrees in comparison to pre-industrial levels. You may have heard that 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, Paris Accords, all very important terms, but essentially it just said, we now know that Kyoto's like, we know this is how we're going to calculate them. Paris, like, this is where we need to target them. And now 23, 2024, and you can see the gap here from 20 years to 7 years to so on. It's come into the private sector, it's come into the public sector. Australian government has announced that all companies over 500 employees and certain amount of revenue from January 1st will have to report their carbon emissions. We have private procurement policy that's all been coming out, any certain government contracts in Australia, and we were a bit late to the party compared to the UK, certainly. Over $1 million, you need to be reporting on your carbon emissions. Some of you who are doing lots of grants and maybe tenders are seeing more and more requests as to reporting on your sustainability credentials, how you're doing it, what your plans are to reduce, maybe your scope 1, 2, and 3. The point of it all is that we're really kind of coming up this ramp of it all, from very small progress, very small pressure, very small expectation, to now it's not so much just a carrot incentive, the sticks come out. And still on the large end of town, but that mandatory reporting requirement, they've already laid out a roadmap. And if you have any questions about that, I would like to know more, shoot us a question in the chat or a message, we can cover it. It's a whole other box to go into, but there is a pressure and there's a ripple effect coming. The roadmap of who has to report up to 100-person employee companies has already been laid out, and it's going to come into effect over the next 3 years. A lot of industry-specific legislation as well, which again can be a big advantage for where you're working. The technical background. My role at NetNada is head of customer success. So I'm involved with, all of our 100+ clients, making sure that we are delivering on the correct calculation of their carbon emissions. But not only that, the ongoing and, the next sustainability goal they may have, whether it is a mandatory reporting requirement, whether it is reaching carbon neutrality. And what I found through, having discussions with so many different companies and so many different people from listed to one-man bands is that more often than not, a lot of these terms have just entered into the everyday vernacular. They've been said to you on the news, and all of a sudden you feel like you know them or you should know them, but really, it really helps to just strip it all back. And again, our role with BBP is also to be a bit of a voice of legitimacy or authority in the carbon accounting, in the sustainability space, to soundboard any questions you may have. But one of the first things to take away, which, could be even just a small win for this space and your understanding, is the difference between carbon neutrality and net zero. These are very often conflated and used interchangeably when they are very different things. Carbon neutral is certainly achievable at the moment, and it's potentially a goal for some of the organisations here, and it's something we see quite commonly. And it's the calculation of all your carbon emissions and then the purchase of offsets to create neutrality. Net zero, on the other hand, is when you stop emitting any carbon emissions, or, there's definitions that vary. It could be 90% reduction in what you emit, and that's a very small offset. But they're two very different things, just calculating and offsetting and then reducing. In some industries, this is not possible at the moment, and we're heading towards it. And that's why when you hear net zero goals, they're 2030 at the earliest, and then 2040, 2050 are much more common. Carbon accounting, this is the process of calculating carbon emissions. Always say it is a little bit misleading sometimes, because for the accountants here or anyone with a basic accounting knowledge, accounting is quite black and white. You're either right or you're wrong. Carbon accounting, there's levels to the sophistication of your analysis. There's a basic level that gives you coverage, which aligns you, and then there's the ability to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And some companies who don't have those levers to really reduce a lot, that's where they really spend their time and focus is around getting really granular data, because it goes back to what Amanda said at the beginning, that you can't reduce what you can't measure. And having a much better understanding of where your emissions are coming from mean that as reduction strategies become more affordable, or reduction strategies, and when I say reduction strategies, I mean strategies to reduce your carbon emissions, become, even just like scientifically feasible, how to implement them and what they're actually reducing. So that's the process of carbon accounting. CO2e, you might see this a lot, and you might have said, well, I know carbon dioxide, and we're always talking about carbon emissions, but aren't the second most commonly known greenhouse gas emission, methane. People always talk about methane and the methane impact of, cattle farms and so on and so forth. To make things simpler, rather than us having like a table of different elements every time we report on carbon emissions, we use a CO2e, which is a carbon dioxide equivalent. And I think it just essentially is just a calculation that reduces it all into an equal part carbon. I think it's 32 parts off the top of my head, methane to carbon. So you'll usually see that E, sometimes the E drops off, but it's always generally referring to the equivalency, including the, 8 or 9 different greenhouse gas. Pardon me. There's emission scopes. This is, and if it feels a little bit foreign or weird to wrap your head around it the first time, you're not alone. I certainly was like that, and nearly everyone I speak to is like that. And I think the history of the greenhouse gas emissions make this a bit clearer. But the GHG Protocol corporate standard, this is what was defined in 1997 by Kyoto Protocol. This is the standard that, Australia is going to report, like that the US, that countries, that governments, Google, they use the GHG Protocol corporate standard. And we're lucky to have that kind of base methodology that everyone aligns to. There's all offshoots and branches and how you do reporting and all those kind of things. But at its core, everyone is using the GHG protocols. And those GHG protocols broke scopes into 3 different categories: Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. And you'll see and hear this across all carbon accounting services, across all areas of sustainability. And scope 1 is your direct emissions from owned controlled sources, and that's the consumption of fuel or refrigerants, fuel from company cars or leased cars, and refrigerants on site, potentially air conditioning. Scope 2 is your indirect emissions from electricity, consumed electricity. And then essentially scope 3 is everything else. Seems like a bit of a weird delineation, obviously, and why is it done like this? And if we think back to how scope 1 and 2 was previously calculated, that was actually possible in the 97. We could figure out how much fuel we consumed, we could figure out how much electricity we consumed, but it was very difficult to do all the scope 3. And the scope 3 and the calculation of scope 3 is something that has given the need for it and the requirement of it has given rise to companies like NetNada. It's needed a technology solution, and don't need to go into it all today. And when we do our onboarding session, which we'll talk about at the end here a bit more, we'll delve a little bit deeper into how the calculation's done, and put your mind at ease essentially that that it's been done in the most correct manner. Now, I guess has there been any questions so far? No, okay, all good. We'll jump into the end anyway. That was a bit of a rundown to the greater picture of sustainability, and then we wanted to kind of illuminate a little bit about carbon accounting, illuminate the fact that there is more and more external pressure beyond just the other benefits of sustainability, which are numerous, and we can touch on in a second. But there are political, regulatory pressures coming down. The ripple effect is heading towards the BBP catchment area. Who is NetNada? What do we do? Who do we work with? Why should you trust us? NetNada is an Australian-owned, Australian-operated sustainability technology company, climate tech company. Worked with over 100, close to hundreds now of companies across all different industries and areas of business, from listed companies. We recently did the submission for Zipco and working with them with their mandatory reporting requirements, to do a lot with events, really small, from everything from fashion to a lot of solar energy companies, all different types. We've seen all different types of internal structures, and really excited to always be working with new companies. And at our core, what we do is carbon accounting, the calculation, as we mentioned, of your carbon emissions. But that's just the first step. What your carbon account, which is a 12-month calculation of your carbon emissions, then unlocks, can look very different from even a 20-person company to a 2-person company to a listed company. And we really help and guide you and work where we're working with BBP, as we'll touch on in a second. Everyone does their carbon account. That's the most important thing to start, to get you that data point. And then from what we use that then, is everything from becoming carbon neutral to looking at government-backed certifications, putting together custom sustainability reports that, you use to improve your existing environmental claims, or you use for government grants and tenders, and, or larger corporate tenders. We're a very secure platform, as we'll touch on in a second. We don't actually sell offsets, but we have access, and we just believe as a company is calculating your carbon emissions, it's not very, doesn't really pass the pub test, or very ethical, that we would just then say, hey, this is how many you should buy. And we can touch on that another time. Energy audits look at how the use of energy can reduce your carbon emissions, and access to our expert support team. We don't just throw you to the wolves with carbon accounting. A lot of documentation, access to myself and my team, and really here to empower you guys on this next step in sustainability. Why is this all sounds, as Amanda is saying, very quick and so very complex. How can we do it so it's actually quick and you can get your results in 2 to 4 weeks? And a lot of developments in AI, machine learning, and the ability for us to process huge amounts of data very quickly. And then we have also spent the last 3 years trying to make this process as simple and easy to navigate from the perspective of businesses who have never even heard of carbon emissions. And that's kind of our goal. And, take a really kind of simplify the input and do all the hard work, and then also make it really easy to understand what you can then use it for. So again, we really aim for that 2 to 4 weeks to turn around the carbon account obviously it's very dependent upon what data you have and how well organized it is. But again, we'll go more into that into our onboarding session. Touched on this already. Everything's aligned with the GHG protocol. Same as well here. Like our analysis is in line with carbon certifications, carbon neutrality, if that's what you are interested in. The final thing I'll just quickly touch on before looking at the next steps and getting Amanda back in with me is, we take data governance and methodology. So take data governance and security very seriously in NetNada. I haven't really gone into what inputs are needed to do your analysis, but it is your financial spend, your expenditure of your business, the different kind of cost centers. We'll touch on that more in the next session, but again, obviously, because we are working with some aspects of financial data, we do have our ISO 27001. We've worked with listed companies, as mentioned. We are a zero out partner. All of our data is coming from very, very reputable sources, CSIRO, UNSW. So, yeah, just thought we'd just quickly touch on that, as it's always a question. Amanda, do you want me to cover this off, or did you want to jump in here?
I'll kick this off, but
Yeah, great.
we'll probably tic-tac.
Yeah, perfect.
So why are we going through this? So BBP is all about being a one-stop shop for our network of businesses, and we've been doing a lot of work on finding the right strategic partners. So we wanted to actually pilot the NetNada service and offer it as part of our free program to a select number of BBP accredited businesses who are operating within our BBP program partner councils of North Sydney, Willoughby, and North Sydney. And there's an accreditation process, which some of you know very well. It's an interview with one of our dedicated program officers, really deep diving into every aspect of your business and working together with you to build a sustainability action plan. So those of you who are already accredited, you are eligible. For those of you who meet that requirement and are interested, get in touch. But also because I did mention that we have been granted some funding by the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority to work on a program to reduce business food waste going to landfill, and that is actually open to food waste producing businesses all over Sydney. So it actually opens up the door to other businesses outside of our partner council areas. So that is our BBP Circular Food Pathways program, and if you are interested in being part of that. And as Alex said, methane is about 30 times as potent as carbon. So carbon dioxide equivalent. Food waste that ends up in landfill gives off 30 times more carbon dioxide. So by measuring your outputs, that would be a really, really great input into that program. So what we would like to do is kick off our first cohort. Our first cohort will be brought on board early November, and we will send out an expression of interest form in an email to everyone who's registered to this webinar with all the details of what's involved. So there's a limited number initially, and then there will be an onboarding session in the next week or so that Alex has referred to. So I don't know whether you want to go through any of the other details for steps 3 to 6, Alex, but I'll just say that we're working together with NetNada as a way to supplement, complement, and make our program a lot more, I suppose, useful to be able to build a sustainability plan that actually can be shared, can be measured, can be tracked, can be promoted to your stakeholders, whatever business you're in. So that is the benefit that we're offering.
Yeah, exactly. I think one thing I'd also mention just on the opportunity here is that obviously, as we've discussed with Amanda and the BBB team, this is a limited cohort, but NetNada subscription software does start at around $3,000 a year, and this is available without cost to begin with to the people who sign up to the cohort. So there's a big opportunity to get all the support that we've mentioned in this call through the BBP program, which is why we're very, very excited about very, very innovative for a council to provide so much support for a limited number of members. Won't go too much into all the data that's needed, but it's not too much required. Again, steps 4, 5, and 6 is just very much that you do have support throughout this. But again, you need to make sure you signed up on the expression of interest form, which we'll send out.
I suppose one thing, Alex, I know that, from extensive conversations with small business owners, they're really time poor and admin is their absolute anathema. So like how much, physical effort is required if they sign up? Is it really, really hard? Is it really time consuming?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we generally say on their end, small business signing up to get the full carbon account done in terms of data collection and all that stuff, it's about 2 hours. So that could be even less if all of your data is in the same place. And for some people, when I say all of your data, it's generally electricity invoices, some information about your waste, and then the required either integration with your accounting software or export import of a certain report from your accounting software. It's not difficult. We often also see people just offload the work straight to their bookkeeper. Again, 30 minutes on the webinar on the onboarding session, that's included in the 2 hours. So it's not much at all.
And then, so after that process is complete, there's like an online dashboard or something that is made available. Is that?
Yeah, exactly right. Again, we haven't gone into the actual system itself is a web application. So it's a dashboard. I think there's a few screenshots throughout here similar to that. I think it's actually just been updated. But we'll go through all of that on the onboarding session. We'll explain the data that's needed, explain how to upload it. We'll then record that as well, send it to you, make it as easy as possible for you to get this initial carbon account. What then happens after this kind of step 4 to step 6, it's really up to, the companies, how much they want to get out of it. We're here we want to create, great case studies that give you all the outcomes and success in sustainability that's possible that we can also hold up. So if that's something of interest, we're really keen to work together. We're really excited about it. So come along to the onboarding session. We'll go more into detail about it. You just need to make sure you sign up. And, if you have any questions you haven't really come to mind today, you wanted to go over again, we'll have a similar, probably a bit more detailed Q&A session on that onboarding webinar early November.
Yeah, so can't see any questions, but I'm just going to think of like any other questions that might pop up. To just say, to reiterate that it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's the sustainability reporting standards that are coming in early 2025, and obviously hitting the biggest organisations and governments first, but it does trickle down pretty quickly because those requirements demand that organisations not only provide their direct emissions, but those of their supply chain. So if you're a business or even a solo consultant and you work or want to work for larger organisations or government, you'll be required to provide your emissions reporting statement. So this is a really great opportunity to get on the front foot for that. And you will be in a much better position to win business when it comes up, or to stay as a supplier to those businesses.
Yeah, definitely. We got two comments here, and what Amanda mentioned is not just for those really large companies. It is the trickle effects. The companies that are working with those large companies at the top level then again go down. I've seen it within the BBP network at the moment. Sydney North Health Network have started putting this into their grant questions. One of our clients came to me and said, "Hey, can you help me respond to this question around how I plan on calculating and reducing my carbon emissions, specifically around waste and travel?" That we gave them the perfect answer because they've been working with us already. But people are doing it already. From Peter Lyle, we need to ensure that only the applicants that will get the best value out of the assessment are willing to continue to use the system in the ensuing years of the council subsidised first year. Exactly right. The motive. This is the first free year. Again, we'll go over it in the cohort discussion. A bit more of the value ties into Sue's question about, is it worthwhile for a micro business sole operator working from home? Certainly, if you're for these smaller companies, if it's easier for you to implement sustainable practices, sustainable plan. You may not have many what we call like levers to reduce your carbon emissions. For a company such as yours, it's like, am I trying to work with larger corporates? Do I want to be using this as a competitive advantage in tenders, or do I want to be aligning myself with more sustainable branding or looking at certifications? If you're smaller as well, certifications become a lot more affordable. So yeah, it's certainly worthwhile. We have lots of people who are sole operators working from home, but for them, they've identified environmental, sustainable, either goods, services, practices, clients of interest as a strategic direction of themselves. So that, okay, great. I want to make sure that I've got a bit of legitimacy when I'm operating in this space or having these conversations.
I think having the measurement and just that visibility of where the emissions are coming from in your business is going to really help to drive making strategic decisions to make those changes that will deliver the biggest bang for buck. So it might be changing from a fossil fueled electricity provider to green power, which is what quite a few businesses, like including Sue from French Affair, have done, to changing to an electric vehicle. That may not be something that is going to happen like today, but that as things change, incentives increase, the costs reduce. That's something that might become realistic within 6 to 12 to 18 months, and that is well within the time frame that sustainability happens, and those big decisions can make a huge impact. So you've got the baseline from the NetNada measurement, and then you can really track and report out on what big impact you're making in your business.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better, Amanda. There's a lot of opportunity across so many different areas at the moment. So we'll touch on that more on the onboarding session. We'll send over so we'll send over the information. Sorry, this is a sign up link within the next 48 hours before the end of the week. That'll have more information about the date. We're just at the moment finalizing the date of the onboarding webinar. So it'll just be a simple form, fill it out, and then we'll go from there with more information.
We've got a question from Oscar. What if a business doesn't have a large carbon footprint? Is it still worth doing?
Yeah, definitely. What is a large carbon footprint? One of the first questions I get every time when we kind of open up the dashboard with the accounts, like, is this bad? Like, should we be hiding this? And the answer is there is no good or bad at the moment. Good is having done a calculation. Good is having disclosed it. Good is having aligned it with a good methodology or accreditation. Large carbon footprints, small. If you have a small carbon footprint, it's still worth doing. You probably don't know. You don't know how big it is first of all until you've done the calculation is one thing. But a smaller carbon footprint opens up a lot of doors, especially around, the cost of carbon neutrality or the cost of certifications. Some certifications will often charge you based on your carbon footprint total. So
I mean, one of the points I think that comes off that around what's a large carbon footprint is really around comparison with
yes.
smaller. So, as part of the NetNada program, is there a capacity or an ability for us to say, benchmark, here's best practice, or here's like a really, really well performing cafe, early learning center, sole operator versus, the other end of the spectrum?
Mm, mm. Yeah, exactly right. And this is where all of these decisions and is it right for me? Is it, this is where NetNada and the BBP are here to support you and to really guide you on that. So it's okay to not fully understand the benefits right now. But again, questions, if you do most of you obviously have Amanda's email, but if you have any questions, shoot them through to her. Amanda, happy for you to share my email. Questions ahead of signing up for the expression of interest in the first cohort. So if you want to ask it more in private, no worries at all. But again, our website as well. Have a look if you would like to learn more about us. But we'll send this recording, and then um, go into more detail about the actual service itself on the onboarding session.
Okay, well, I can't see any more questions. One thing I was going to mention, I saw something in your slides about the energy audits, and it reminded me that BBP Council partners have some rebates
Yeah.
that, part of our BBP service is really to make sure that the small businesses know about what is available to help you to get those energy audits, to access grants that are available, whether it's through the councils or through various other programs that different levels of government offer. From time to time, there's a solar and battery rebate that kicks off on the 1st of November, I believe, that is available for the small business community. So, part of this NetNada measurement capability is to really to shine a light on those areas that offer an opportunity, and then we can deep dive into, so what can we do to increase energy efficiency, to reduce your cost, and I mean, the emissions reduction is not necessarily the primary goal, but it's a great corollary. It's a really great impact that you can also bank.
Definitely. And those grants and rebates and what we're seeing with many of our clients and speaking to, we held a similar webinar to this, talking to the ex-head of New South Wales procurement, is that the sustainability credentials within these grants and webinars are now kind of awarded a similar sort of, they say between 10 to 15 to 20% uplift, similar to like NDIS considerations or Supply Nation considerations, because all of a sudden when these solar and battery applications come out, people who have participated in, and calculated their carbon emissions can put together a much more sophisticated and stronger application to say, hey, we know what our scope 2 emissions are. We can see that they're 20 tons for the total year. And we expect with this, the successful receipt of this grant, we'll be able to reduce them by 60%. Not just, hey, we want to save some money on our energy bill. And having that kind of application, we're seen as so much stronger. You know, we've helped so many of our clients go with these grants, and that's the kind of thing where I think you really are able to take advantage of all the opportunities through the BBP program to, you know, at the end of the day, increase, you know, the bottom line of your business, whether it's through cost reductions or winning more business. And that's what we're really here to help you with.
Okay.
Right.
I don't think we've got any more questions. So, as Alex said, email through. We'll be sending through this recording as well as a whole stack of information that that you can follow up. Please fill out the expression of interest form if you are ready to participate in cohort 1. There will be cohorts throughout the year, but if you're in cohort 1, and you said, you know, 2 weeks up and running, so you'll get this before Christmas as an initial baseline, which would be an amazing thing to be able to start the new year with.
Exactly. You know, or ready to go. We see a lot of people kind of sign up in December because they know January might be a quieter period, and they really enjoy kind of just like, got a bit of a down day, can just knock this off really quickly, get my carbon account done. But anyway, we'll go across all that. Amanda, thanks for your time. Thanks everyone for your time. Really excited to meet everyone who's coming on that first cohort. So we'll chat soon. We'll be in touch.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bye.